At the turn of the millennium, Enron was the seventh largest corporation in America. It was seen as this brilliant, innovative energy giant. But behind those soaring stock prices was one of the biggest, most devastating corporate frauds in history. So the question is, how does a company that claims to be on the side of angels end up orchestrating its own spectacular fall?
Yeah, that was the CEO, Jeffrey Skilling, just a few months before the whole thing completely imploded. We are the good guys. I mean, just let that sink in. It's an incredible statement because it perfectly captures the massive gulf between Enron's public image and what was really going on inside. So how did a company run by these self-proclaimed good guys go so wrong?
Well, to really get the crime, you first have to understand the culture that bred it. This wasn't just a case of some bad accounting. No, it was a whole system designed to reward aggression and punish caution. It created this intense pressure cooker that made fraud feel almost inevitable. And at the center of it all was Jeffrey Skilling. His favorite book was supposedly Richard Dawkins' The Selfish Gene, and he basically took this harsh Darwinian idea and applied it directly to the workplace. He fundamentally believed that in a dog-eat-dog world, the only things that really get people to perform are greed and the fear of being left behind. That's it. Skilling turned that philosophy into actual policy with something called the Performance Review Committee, or PRC. But inside the company, everyone knew it by its brutal nickname, Rank and Yank. Twice a year, every employee was graded against their peers. And here's the truly ruthless part. Even if every single person in a department hit their targets, the committee still had to rank them on a curve and fire the bottom 10 to 15%. Imagine that.
So, on paper, the stated goal was to create this elite meritocracy of top performers. But the reality? It was a culture of pure paranoia. People stopped taking on risky, innovative projects because any little failure could land you at the bottom of the list and, well, out of a job. And this is the crucial point. When your very survival depends on hitting these crazy aggressive targets, you're not just incentivized to work harder, you're incentivized to cheat.
Okay, so with everyone terrified of being ranked and yanked, the stage was perfectly set. This high-pressure culture became the engine for some of the most creative and, let's be honest, destructive accounting tricks ever devised. Welcome to what people called Enron's black box. The first key to the fraud was something called mark-to-market accounting. Now, normally, if you sign a 20-year contract, you book the profits year by year as you actually earn them. Makes sense, right? But Enron? Oh no. They would estimate the total potential profit over all 20 years and put it on their books as income on day one. It created this complete phantom of profitability, which forced them to make bigger and crazier deals just to keep the illusion going.
The second tool they used was even more deceptive: special purpose entities, or SPEs. The easiest way to think of these is as financial hiding places. Enron would create these empty shell companies, often run by their own executives, for one main reason: to hide debt. So if Enron had a failing investment or a mountain of debt, they'd just sell it to one of these SPEs, and poof, it magically disappeared from their own balance sheet. So how did this actually work in practice? Let's walk through it real quick. First, Enron moves a bad investment off its own books and sticks it in an SPE. Then, that same SPE, which, remember, is controlled by Enron, borrows a bunch of money to pay for the asset. And what's the result? Enron gets to book all that borrowed cash as real revenue, making it look super profitable and debt-free, while all the toxic stuff was just hidden off stage. And the scale of this was just staggering. This wasn't some one-off trick they used a couple of times. Enron created over 3,000 of these shell companies. It was this unbelievably complex, sprawling web of deception, all designed to make the company look like an untouchable titan of industry. But of course, the cracks were starting to show. During a recorded conference call, a financial analyst had the guts to ask a really simple question. Hey, why can't you guys produce a simple balance sheet with your earnings? Skilling's now infamous response just showed how immense the pressure was getting. The black box was meant to be impenetrable, and anyone who dared to question it was treated like an enemy.
And this brings us to the final act. As more and more questions started popping up and the pressure intensified, that massive, complex web of lies that Enron had built, well, it began to unravel with absolutely shocking speed.
I mean, the dominoes just fell one after another so fast. August 14th, 2001, Skilling is gone. He just resigns. 8 days later, a VP named Sharon Watkins sends that famous memo warning that the company will implode. Then, by October, the real numbers finally come out.
a staggering loss of over $600 million. And less than 2 months after that, it was all over.
But the story doesn't really end with the bankruptcy filing. The fallout from Enron was so huge, so profound, that it permanently changed the rules for corporate America. It created a whole new legacy, one built right from the company's ashes. The consequences were, for sure, severe. Jeffrey Skilling was sentenced to more than 2 decades in prison. And it wasn't just Enron that fell. Their auditor, Arthur Andersen, one of the 5 biggest accounting firms in the entire world, was found guilty of obstructing justice because they shredded documents. That conviction completely destroyed the firm. Gone.
So, in response to this massive crisis of confidence in the markets, Congress got together and passed the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which everyone just calls SOX. It was the most significant piece of corporate reform since the Great Depression, and it was designed with one single goal in mind: to prevent another Enron from ever happening again.
And what's really interesting is when you look at the key parts of this new law, you can see a direct answer to every single part of the Enron playbook. The Arthur Andersen problem? Boom, a new board was created to police the auditors. Executives claiming they didn't know? Nope, now CEOs have to personally sign off on financial reports. And what about empowering the next Sharon Watkins? You got it, new, much stronger protections for whistleblowers.
And that really brings us to the central question that Enron left behind. We can create new laws, we can demand more oversight, and we can mandate accountability. But when a corporate culture is so deeply driven by fear and a win-at-all-cost mentality, can any set of rules, no matter how well-intentioned they are, truly be enough to stop it?